and on and on. You will hear people say, well, the military is hollowed out. We have not enough money for our military, and yet we doubled the amount of money we spend on the military since 9/11/2001. Look, I have family members in the military. I have retired members of the military in my family, and I care very deeply about our soldiers. In fact, you know what I would do? I'd bring them all home from Afghanistan. The war is won. People are talking about making a parade. Declare victory in Afghanistan, bring them home and have a parade, and give them all a raise. And yet, we go on and on and on finding new wars to fight that make no sense, where we have no idea who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, that are so murky that halfway through the war we sometimes change sides, or the people we support change sides. So we're at war in Afghanistan after 16 years. Costs $50 billion a year. So they need more money for the military because we're in too many places for too long. We have no exact mission of why we're there, and it is not a militarily winnable situation in Afghanistan. There will never be a victory in Afghanistan. There may be a negotiated settlement, and they may flee when we come, but as soon as we leave, they come back. Are we to be there forever? For the umpteenth time, Congress is going to exceed their budget caps. We had something passed back in 2010. It was called PAYGO. It was supposed to say if you're going to pay new money, you had to go find an offset somewhere else. You could only pay as you go. It was sort of like a family would think about it. If you're going to spend some more money, you either got to raise your income or you got to save some money. You know how many times we've evaded it since 2010? 30 some odd times. When I try to get them to pay attention to their own rules, like 3 or 4 people will vote to pay attention to the rules. We are in a terrible state as a country. $20 trillion in debt is bigger than our entire economy. You wonder why the stock market is jittery? Well, one of the reasons is we do not have...
There's something very real about this president.
What's going on? What is going on, everybody? Hope y'all are doing well. So we opened up with a little bit of the speech that he was given. I still have it going here, but what we're going to do is we're actually going to pause this. We'll come back to it, and I'll play a little bit more for you guys. But I did want to talk about this. We're trying something a little different with the webcam. It may look a little funny, but it is what it is. So how you guys doing? I see Cindy in Periscope. Benjamin Bennett on YouTube here. John joined. Beard is on point today. Oh, well, thank you. It's actually kind of a disaster today, but hey, what are you going to do? So we are broadcasting, guys, just so y'all know, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, Gab, and Twitch. And so this speech, I don't know if you guys caught it. It's kind of long, but it's important. This is something that really, if you have the time, you should listen to it because he brings up so many good points. And a lot of the points that he brings up is why are we funding these other countries who, like Pakistan? He brings up Pakistan. He talks about the waste of all the money in the government that's being spent. I want that hat, Josh. I used to make some and actually sell them. I might do that again. I just have to find a little bit better situation for me to do it. But we were actually selling them for a while. Anyway, so he's arguing all points that make sense. He's saying that there is a ton of waste, which we all know. And a point he brought up, and it was talking about a 1% cut, about how people take 1% cuts on their paycheck all the time. And, so the government should do the same thing. They should take a 1% cut. And then my favorite part of what he brought up was all these individual cases of where money was just blown, basically. Completely blown. So if you haven't seen the entire thing, you should. I'm going to play a little bit more of it. I'm reading. Maybe read this budget. Well, so one of the other points that he brings up, which is super important to talk about, is how they pass these things. Okay, because basically you have a bunch of elected people who are super lazy. Okay, they want this vacation, that vacation. They always want to be on vacation. They never actually want to do work and try to get anything passed. So what they do is they lump everything into one big bill, and then you hear all this argument about why nothing is being passed, through the blame game of this one and that one. And that's what's happening. Okay, that is what's happening, is that they're trying to stuff all these things into one bill, and it's not going through, or they're having problems, instead of trying to pass things individually, which is how it should be, as far as I'm concerned. Why is it that we don't get as many vacations, right? I mean, we all work hard for what we do. And I'm sure, they probably have things to do from the state in which they represent, or the area or whatnot. But at the same time, I mean, they got to get stuff done. That's why we elected them. We elected them to get them to do something to improve the state of the country as it is, right? I mean, that's the whole point of why we vote for people, because we think that they're actually going to do, we think they're going to do something good for us, but they're all just lining their pockets, really. It's a sad state in which we're in, and I see more people are coming out to run, and I think that's great. I think Ace Baker just made an announcement on Facebook about how he's going to be running for a seat, and I think more people should. I mean, I think more people should, just to even keep politics alive with a different generation, because a lot of these people, like, look at Nancy Pelosi. Okay, look at Nancy Pelosi. Look at Maxine Waters. Where is Josh? Probably on Periscope. I'm Josh, so maybe that's who they're talking to, Paula. Feed is messing up. I don't know. If the feed's messing up, guys, we got it going on in a few different places. So YouTube, Gab, Periscope, Facebook. By the way, guys, we do have a new Facebook page. I don't have it up, but while I have that, while we're talking about this, let's go over here. Let me just show you what we're talking about. So this is the Gab page, guys. We're really trying to expand this now. Oh, John, yeah, the VPN will do that to you if it's a slow one. So this is our Gab page. You can come and check it out here. We're trying to do more stuff here. It is free speech. They will not take down your posts. There's no jail. There's no nothing like that. It's sort of like Twitter, but not like Twitter. It's kind of like its own thing. You might want to check that out. And then here, guys, this is also our Instagram page. What we have right here. Get this out of here. So we've got, just some of our Instagram posts. So you can check us out over here on Instagram. And then also, guys, if you like what we're doing here at Patriot Media, this is our Patreon page. You can head over here, patreon.com/Patriot Media, and, sign up if you like it. But what I want to do, guys, is actually I'm going to go to the video. I'm going to go to his speech, and I'm going to play it for a few minutes, and then we'll just come back and we'll kind of talk about it. So let me head over here, and we'll just get this going again here. So here we go.
There'll be a catastrophe in this country. Already, interest rates are ticking up. Stock market is jittery. If you ask a question why, maybe it has something to do with the irresponsibility of Congress spending money that we don't have. So the bill's going to exceed the budget caps by $296 billion. And that's not counting the money they don't count. All right, so these people are really, really clever. Imagine them running their fingers together and saying, how can we hide stuff from the American people? How can we evade the spending caps so we can be even more irresponsible than we appear? So 296 is the official number, about $300 billion over 2 years that will be in excess of the budget caps. But there's another $160 billion that's stuck into something called an overseas contingency fund. The budget caps don't apply there. So we're $300 billion for 2 years over the budget caps. And then we're another $160 billion over the caps, so they just don't count it. They act as if it doesn't matter. We're just not going to count it. And then we come to catastrophes. And you might say to yourself, well, I have great sympathy for those people's houses were flooded in Texas and Florida. I do. My sister's house was flooded in Houston or near Houston. And so I have great compassion. But even for my family, I can't take the money from you or borrow it for the next generation. Just say, hey, here's a pot of money. Go rebuild your house.
I know some of you guys probably have already seen this. But I just want to play it for a little bit here. Not everybody has a chance. So we'll just jump back and forth. I'll cut to other places. But Paul, if you've already seen it, then you know why it's important to talk about this, because a lot of people are getting ready for the live stream, Patriot Media. See, okay, I'm not sure what he's saying over here. So if you've seen it, that's cool. I mean, you should. I hope that more people do. That's why I'm kind of like jumping back and showing clips and kind of talking about it, because this is something that a lot of people don't. I don't really think understand how it works. And he broke it down pretty good. I mean, he broke it down pretty good and explained why they're in the situation that they're in and how to resolve it. And what I don't understand is why more people aren't like getting behind him and getting behind what he's saying and what he's doing. That's what I don't really get too much. It seems that everybody's just kind of on board trying to play status quo as opposed to actually working, right? I mean, these people have to work. You have to get things passed, and they should be addressed individually. And that's one of the same things. It's nice to discuss it. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of it was late. It was late when it happened. And actually, let me just jump forward here. Let's see.
Movie with a depiction of
here we go. These are good. Let me see if I can just find the right spot here.
Our federal money, a really worthwhile science project with a.
I don't know. Here, let's just fast forward a little bit. There we go.
Some of the things that we've been doing more recently.
This is interesting.
We do a waste report where we point some of these things out, and every week we have a new one. And so if you want to look at our waste report, we've got that up, I believe, on our Facebook and on our website.
So they got a waste report.
This is one of my favorites.
Check that out.
Remember when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon? He said, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Or,
this is ridiculous right here.
Some people think he said, "One small step for a man, one giant leap." So there's been some discussion, some very heated discussion over whether he said one step for man or one step for a man. The preposition a, did he or did he not use the preposition a? So your government, in their infinite wisdom, took $700,000, which, by the way, was supposed to go to autism research.
Wow.
And they decided to study Neil Armstrong's statement. So
wow.
Somebody at some university decided to play the tape over and over to see what he said. $700,000 later, they couldn't decide.
I mean, there you go, right? I mean, that should tell you something right there. $700,000 to decide if he said what a different preposition or not, and that money was supposed to go to autism research. So who is signing off on this kind of stuff? Like, who is saying that this is okay? Who is letting it happen? I don't understand. Like, how does this stuff? I mean, that's a lot of money, right? 700,000, and then when you go through some of the other ones that he talks about, 250,000. Yeah, I mean, the numbers just add up, and then also he touches on the fact of all the money we give to other countries and how it's pretty much useless, and how he talked about one from Afghanistan, how we paid to build a natural gas station in Afghanistan, and then they realized, oh, wait a second. Nobody here has natural gas cars. So then they went and they purchased natural gas cars for everybody. It's a whole thing that he goes through. You all should really watch it. I mean, I'm not going to reiterate every single thing that he says, but it's just mind-boggling to think that these stupid decisions are going on in government. And this is how we're being represented by the people that we're voting for. And this is what they're doing. So, I mean, if it's not a message to really put the effort in to run for offices, or to help campaign for people, or to do something to try to get the proper people in office that actually want to work and do their job, okay? I don't know what, like, that should be the number one priority, because this is a problem across the board, okay? This is Republicans, this is Democrats, this is everybody who is the swamp. This is the swamp, okay? They don't work. They take more vacations than anything, and they come out with something that's 700 pages, and then they like want to vote on it like the next day. It's like nobody has time to read 700 pages. I don't have time to read 700 pages. So all the more so somebody who's in government, right? I mean, and if they're going to read it, give them some time, guys. Give them some time. You know, let them look it over, see what it's about. Will this be a replay? Yeah, you'll be able to catch this later. This should stay up, and we got it in a few different places. I'm not sure what the stream quality is like on all of them, but they are out on our Facebook, our new Facebook page, because Facebook deleted our page, and so we're starting over. So we have Patriot Media Facebook page, we have our Periscope, YouTube, and also on Gab. So we're on all of those. And the reason why I say you guys should really follow us on Gab is because when you go under Gab TV, Okay, so I could go here, but it's going to mess the whole thing up, but it's fine. I could fix it. So if we go here, right, okay, to Gab, this is what my page looks like. Now, you could see the popular post, and when you click on this little TV button, that's going to show you who is live. So up at the top here where it says TV, that's who you're going to be able to see who is live there. Now, not everybody can go live, and I actually think that that's a good feature because I don't want to see all types of different lives. You know, this is for people who are actually trying to either make something, do something. Yeah. Okay. So and the reason is I can make a video and I can say whatever I want to say, and I don't have to worry about videos being taken down. Videos like this, I can broadcast across all the platforms, but because of what's happened to us already, and this has been, you're seeing now, which I think is a little ironic because I've been out here for months saying, you know, hey guys, like, this has been what's going on to me. Like, this is what's been going on to me. And there's a lot of people who are aware of myself, aware of Patriot Media, aware of what we did. And it's just interesting how people don't really, you know, I don't even know the right way to explain it, but they're not interested until it happens to them. And then all of a sudden now they're interested and they're talking about it, when all I asked from the beginning was that people need to talk about what is happening. And people didn't, I mean, nobody did. Nobody mentioned anything really, a couple people. And so now you're seeing more and more people come out saying the exact same things about what I was saying about how we were shadow banned and all this stuff. So, I mean, this is all coming out. I mean, but we told you about this happening to us from months ago, and there's many other people who have had problems as well. But now there's some people who are just starting to get it, and, you know, we're just starting to hear about it from them now. But this has been going on for a long time, okay? This has been going on for a long time. Yeah. And so we're basically at this point, we're just trying to build back up the page, but we're still trying to fight to get the old Facebook page back. So we're doing two things at once. We still want to be able to, for people to be able to find us on Facebook. So that's why we have the new page. And then as far as the old page goes, we're still trying to get that. We haven't given up, but I'm not going to sit around and do nothing on Facebook until we determine whether or not I can get it back or not. Also, I fixed some things here behind the scenes, so it's a little bit better on my end. So you can expect to see more of these types of broadcasts because I'm starting to. I basically have learned this as I go, and I'm starting to learn different things. So we'll be able to get other people in these type of live streams now. I figure I got the Skype working, I got that going, so we'll be able to do that. And so instead of actually call-ins too, we could do call-ins, but if there's anybody who actually has Skype, we could do Skype call-ins at one point too. So that's basically where we're at as far as that goes. I just think that this was a pretty incredible speech, and I think that everybody really needs to listen to this and kind of take it to heart and figure out, well, how are we gonna stop this? Because these people who are in office have to get out. This is a big year. Like, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of seats up for re-election, basically. So this is the time to run. If you're going to run, okay. If you're in a position to be able to run and you could do that, then by all means, if you feel that, you know, that is the best way to do, go for it. I mean, we need more people running, okay? Because here's the deal: is that, look, when you talk about politics like this, there's tons and tons of money involved. So if you unfortunately, in order to be able to like play, you have to be able to play, right? And that these people have millions of dollars behind them, right? These big establishment candidates. So if you really, my suggestion would be, if you really want to succeed of winning, you got to find the people who are willing to put the money up, but that, you know, are not looking to get something in return from you, which is tough, right? I mean, obviously, because everybody wants this favor, wants that favor, and that's how we get into these mess with the politics that we're in. But at the same time, I'm sure there's people out there who legitimately would give with no strings attached because they're tired of the crap and they believe in the same thing. And you know, there's ways to go about it. But if you're gonna take things seriously and people are gonna run, and I can tell you this because I talk with Bruce Nathan regularly. I'm working with something with him, and there's more people that are coming out to run in different places, and I think that's awesome. It's just it gets incredibly messy, incredibly complicated. Can you bring people on Periscope? I can't bring anybody in through Periscope. Ace Baker is running for Senate in Tennessee. Ace is a page. Yeah, well, that's actually what I'm saying there, Paul. Is that's Ace did say that he's running for Senate. So I mean, we need to get the people who are in there out, and the only way that's going to happen is when new people come and run. I mean, that's it. That's the only way, you know. And the truth is that when people, like, when you look back at the history of this country, right, before it turned into the big swampy, nasty mess that it is now, the people who were voted in to represent in Congress were everyday people. I mean, they were normal people. They weren't, you know, they weren't career politicians, because that didn't exist yet. They were, you know, blacksmiths and whatever, carpenters or doctor or whatever it is, you know, whatever it was that they did for a living. Okay, that's what they did. And then they went and they served the country, and then they left, and then they went back. Okay, that's not what we have today. It hasn't been that way for a long time. So at least if we're going to vote people in, I think we should vote people in who haven't been there forever, who are new blood, you know, people who actually want to get things done, because these people that have been in there for so long, like what's pointed out in this Rand Paul speech, is that they're lazy. They don't want to work. They just want to come get their vacations, and then that's it, you know, and mush everything into one bill and push it through. And it doesn't work that way. I mean, unfortunately, it has worked that way, and that's the problem. That's the problem that we have, okay? That is the problem that we have. Farmers, yeah, Dale says farmers, for sure. I mean, farmers, all types of people, okay? This is how the country was founded. Like, if you just look at the history and you see, this is what we need to be getting back to. What we have now isn't working. It hasn't been working for a long time. And there's so many people who are out there saying it. And there's so many people who are trying to do something in their own way. And I think that that's fantastic. I do. I think that if everybody were to put their effort into something, right, that they feel would help in one way or another. Like, so I do videos, you know, I do videos, and I go when I can to things, and I try to film it, and I try to give it a different perspective, because let me kind of tell you something, okay? When you look at what people are watching, more people, especially younger people, younger generations, the you know, younger than me or my age or younger, or even people older, okay? Everyone is turning to the internet right now. Everybody's turning to social media, YouTube, all this. No one's really watching TV except for shows. If people watch, I don't even have a TV. To be honest, I don't even own a TV. I just don't. And everybody's coming to the internet. So it's important to have stuff that is engaging, that's fun, that's, you know, good content that people are going to want to come and see, especially when you're talking about something that means something. You know, I mean, that's the way I look at it. What I think that I bring to the table is that I'm trying to do something a little bit differently, to bring information and spread messages in realms that maybe, you know, normally wouldn't get there. So, and other people's messages gets to other places that mine wouldn't get. And like, that's the whole beauty of it. That is the beauty of all this, that if everybody, it works together instead of fighting each other all the time, you know, we'd be a lot more effective. But the main thing is that people, if you're going to be representing people, you have to be educated about what you're representing them about. Do you have a set time for Periscope Live yet? I do not have a set time for Periscope Lives yet. I can't, you know, I could. I just really have to look at my schedule. It's tough to set a time for that, but I will probably come out with some kind of schedule for lives like this, and then the other ones will just kind of pop up, I guess, where they pop up until I can come up with something a little bit better, just because of the way things are for me right now. I have a hard time digesting the fact that Dems like Pelosi put illegals above the citizens. Well, I mean, I do too, but the fact is it's happening. When you look at California, okay, anybody who lives in California who's watching this or will see this in the replay or whatever knows how much California caters to the illegal population, okay? What they give them, what entitlements they're allowed to have. I mean, hell, it's their sanctuary state. You know, it's out of control. So you have these constituents of hers who have, you know, more money than probably I'll see ever in my whole life. Okay. And they're just lining her pockets with money, and they're the ones that are controlling her because, and plus you got a lot of people who are just brainwashed from the educational system out there who are just programmed to think from a very socialist, Marxist perspective, because that's what's been pushed at them through schools. So I'm trying to see if there's any comments here. Yes, makes me sick. We have so many homeless vets, homeless children on Facebook. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing really why I wanted to talk about his videos, because he points out about all of the budget, the issues. In fact, let's go back to the video for a little bit. Just play a little bit of it here.
Inquiring minds want to know, but that we just still don't know. Did he say amen or did he say man? So this is the same kind of stuff you were seeing with William Proxmire 50 years ago, but this is last year. I think it's the same group, National Science Foundation. I think I'm probably going to get some hate mail from them. So this is $850,000, and we call this one the game of waste. This was spent, and you think when we're spending money in Afghanistan, well, surely it's to kill the enemy. Sometimes it's building bridges, sometimes it's building roads, stuff that
we
don't do in our country
amount
anymore.
Of money.
But this one was $850,000 for the development of a televised cricket league. You see, self-esteem is important.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry. A televised cricket league for Afghanistan. Why? Why are we why? For what reason? What does that even serve? What is that's the stupidest thing. And they get dumber. Just wait.
Afghanis to feel good about themselves. We want them to be able to watch the national sport on TV. So we spent $850,000 to get it televised. The only thing we didn't reckon is that it was kind of like the natural gas cars. They didn't have TVs. So I don't know if we're in the process now of buying them TVs, but we did spend $850,000 of your money
so stupid.
To get a televised cricket league for those people in Afghanistan.
This is just absurd. Here we go. Let's see what the next one's going to be. Oh, here we go.
So this is a good one.
This
Everybody
is so
likes
stupid.
to take a selfie, right? Everybody's had it. If you don't do them, your kids will do them with them. Your grandkids will do them with them. This was a study of $500,000 to tell if taking selfies makes you happy.
The swamp
part
part at work.
You're smiling or you're frowning and you look at yourself in the picture, does it make you happy? Now, inquiring minds want to know. And if you want to study that, good for you. Go get somebody to voluntarily give you some money to study that, all right? And I really would like to watch you going around the neighborhood, knocking on doors, asking for money to study whether selfies make you happy.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Come on. To study selfies, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Why are we spending money on that? There's so much more we could be doing with that money, okay? Dumb. And then the question, I saw a question here, disgruntled from YouTube. Did you get your Facebook issue straightened out? Yes and no. The old page is still gone. We're still fighting to try to get it back. We have a new page now, just so that we can broadcast on Facebook, which is actually where we should be on there right now. This computer locked me out here. Hold on 1 second. You have to run 2 computers to be able to kind of do this right now. But yeah, everything's going good. So, I mean, I'm not seeing any issues here. But we have a new Facebook page. So if you guys are watching right now from Facebook, hit that like button. Our old page was deleted by Facebook. Please help us get that message out there. There's so many people that probably have no idea that it even happened, because the way Facebook does things, they just deleted it. And I was already on a 30-day Facebook ban. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, but this video, guys, is just too entertaining for me. This is so ridiculous.
This stuff has been going on for 40 years. Why don't we root this out and stop it? Well, one, they'll come to you all high and mighty and they'll say, "But sir, it is science, and you are
Tom,
a
you're right.
person and don't understand how important selfies could be, and you aren't qualified to talk about selfies because you don't know about happiness." We have experts in happiness that can tell that we could make the world happy again. We could all be happy if we had more selfies.
Just take more selfies.
And so it goes on. They give us this scientific mumbo jumbo that somehow
take
we're not
selfies
smart enough
to be
have
happy.
Common sense enough to know what we should be spending money on. But this goes on decade after decade.
So dumb. I'm sorry, guys. It's so stupid. Here we go.
It's a school lunch program. And you might say,
oh,
well,
LA.
we
Look,
need to
it's
help
LA,
those who
guys.
can't buy school lunch. So we have a school lunch program.
LA mishandled
What
money.
we discovered was $158 million was given, federal money, to a Los Angeles school district, and it turns out they were buying things other than lunches because nobody was watching them. Nobody was auditing the program. Nobody was doing the individual appropriation bills. They were passing class pans together, continuing resolutions where nobody looks at it. 700 pages and nobody reads it. And when nobody reads it, they buy sprinklers and buy things for themselves, new televisions for the faculty to watch. $158 million that was not spent on school lunches but was wasted and spent on other items.
So ridiculous. Cut their funding. It's simple. Stop giving them money.
So everybody's heard about climate change, and there's some undertones and overtones of politics in climate change. But in case you haven't heard of climate change, the people who want you to hear of climate change.
So here's another one, a video game, guys. So they're spending money on a video game. I mean, this is just, you could see, like, it just continues on and on. It's a little mind-boggling that somehow these things get approved, and the way this is all happening is because these people who we vote in don't want to do their jobs. Okay, no, it's not that the kids need less money. It's that the money that you give needs to go for the proper things. If you give them money and they say it's for, see, this is the game that Planned Parenthood likes to play too. This is the game they like to play too, which is they say, oh, well, we get this money, but we don't use this money for that. We don't use this money for abortions. Like, give me a break. You know what? One way or the other, okay, then that's the thing. They just play around with the money. They like move everything around and it becomes this big, like, jumbled mess. But they're like, oh, wait a second, but we don't actually spend any of that money on abortions. And then you've got the school district over here spending the money on something else when it should be spent, instead of being spent on what it should have been spent on. I mean, it's kind of a little crazy, if you ask me. I don't know how this stuff can continue to go on and not have any type of repercussions. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have repercussions. The fact is that we keep borrowing and borrowing money, and we can't afford it. That our debt goes up over $1 million a minute. Okay, that's a lot of money, guys. $1 million a minute. Over. It's closer to 2. So our national debt grows at a rate of every minute over $1 million because we keep borrowing money for crap that we can't afford because we're sending millions and millions of dollars overseas. We're wasting millions on stupid programs like this stuff that he's showing. Okay, it's really out of hand. Do you know what I'm saying? It's really out of hand. So what's the solution? I guess is we got to get more people in. So people who are running, I mean, good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that they are, and I think that we should have more people and more people get involved in local elections and educating people, and really having direct communication with the people who you will be voting for, so that you can get a feel for them, if they're telling you, if they're honest, okay, or are they trying to just pull one over on you for some reason, right? These are the things that we have to pay attention to. We have to pay attention to that. Because sometimes, let me tell you something, just because they got an R or a D in front of their name doesn't mean that they should be voted for. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? I mean, look at some of the Republicans we've got. Because let me make this clear. The mess that we have right now is not all Democrats. Yes, Democrats have their own problems that they cause. Okay, they bring their own host of problems. But when we're talking about what was said today at this Rand Paul speech, what he said, he makes it very, very clear that this is not just a partisan issue, that this is actually an issue because both of them are lazy as hell and don't do their job and always want to just mush everything into one bill. So I mean, this is like what has to change. This is what has to change. So I'm really looking forward to getting this Skype going so I can bring some people in and we can have some discussions on this. I mean, we could do. See, the thing is right now what I'm trying to do, guys, is I'm trying to just let you guys know that I'm still here. Patriot Media is still here, and that we're doing some stuff because I'd like to get back to sort of where we were, or at least get people to know where to come find us, so that way we could do some call-ins and stuff like that when we actually have a lot more people tuning in right now. Because at the moment, obviously because we're still, our biggest audience before was Facebook, and they straight up just deleted our page. So we're basically building up all the platforms at once again now and starting Facebook from scratch. So that's where we're at here. I'm trying to see, is it even live on Gab? I should be. I'm just checking on this over here, but here, we'll go back to this for a minute, guys. Let you play some more of this.
To make sure you're listening to them about climate change. So they spent $450,000 on a video game. This is also National Science Foundation. So a whole new generation will be able to play this video game on climate change. And, complete with great graphics. And we've got this game that your kids can play on climate change. And it's like, it's just one thing after another. All right, you may have been on this one if you're in Washington. This one we call a streetcar named Waste. There's a streetcar over here a few blocks on H Street, and they spent $1.6 million on it. I think they had already spent more on it before that, but they spent an additional, it goes a mile. It goes from nowhere to nowhere. And you get on it, and there's nobody on it. And it just cost a fortune. You could walk from one end to the other in about the same time it takes you to go on the subway or on this tramway. And so, but, $1.6 million. And you have to ask yourself, when you see this government spending, would you give money to this? And I ask this question often when I'm home. I ask people, if you had $100 you were going to give because you wanted to help people, would you give it to the Salvation Army or the federal government that spends $1.6 million on a streetcar that goes from nowhere to nowhere and no one rides? So I talked about whether or not we should be spending the money somewhere else or here. This is $250,000 that was spent on bringing 24 kids from Pakistan to space camp and to Dollywood. And you can say, well, that's good relations.
This one's
now we
really
have good
stupid.
relations with Pakistan. They're no longer going to kill Christians, put them in jail, or burn our flag. Maybe, and I'm not against interaction. And in fact, if this were some kind of privately funded group that wanted to have some money to have interaction between us and Pakistan, probably be all for it. But first, the price tag's a little scary to me. $250,000 for 24 kids. But then I also think I represent a lot of people in Kentucky who don't have the money to drive down to Huntsville and go to space camp with their kids. So really, should we not sort of readjust our priorities and start thinking, do we need to take care of ours at home here before we start shipping our money overseas? Or do we really need to think about, can we afford to just keep borrowing money for projects like this?
Here we go. The borrowing. That's what I'm saying. Because that's basically what we're doing is we just keep borrowing. We don't have it. It does get worse, Diana.
This is the Department of Defense, and this I think we referred to earlier. And this was the $29 million worth of heavy equipment that they lost. Can't find it in Afghanistan. It's even worse than that. See, they lost that, but we also made the decision as we were downgrading the war in Afghanistan after the last surge that we did in Afghanistan, that we didn't want the other side to have our stuff, so we blew up a lot of our own stuff. We blew up billions of dollars worth of Humvees, tanks.
Oh, yeah, that's smart.
But when they were looking and counting it up, they found $29 million worth that they couldn't find.
So efficient with money.
This is, if you really think about it and you're thinking, how could we have more money for both our national defense and how could we have more money for like infrastructure? You hear people talk about infrastructure. People want to build roads. Republicans and Democrats want to build roads, but guess what? There's no money. We're $1 trillion short this year because we passed these class pans, spend whatever the hell you can find, whatever's not tied down, spend it and give it away. Both sides spend it, there's no tomorrow. But if you say, how could we change our government? Where would there be some money that we could actually save? Well, really, some of it is in our foreign policy. We do not have enough, probably, for our military to be involved in 7 wars. We might have enough to be involved in maybe 3 or 2 or 1, or maybe we should not be involved.
And this actually, I want to point out, guys, and this is something to talk about too, because there's a lot of people out there, these brainwashed Democrats, who are always like, oh, well, what about Bush? They don't realize that a lot of the people, many people who voted for Trump didn't like Bush either. Like, they think that we're like some kind of Bush lovers. I wasn't. I didn't like the guy. I'm just being honest. I never liked him. I didn't like the Clintons. I didn't like the Bushes. They're all part of the same nonsense. Excuse me. they're all part of the same nonsense. Okay, if you read, all you have to do is read Roger Stone's The Clintons' War on Women. Read that book, and then you'll see exactly why they're considered the same. I mean, Bill Clinton on George Sr. considers him to be like a son. Okay, like that's a fact. So they're this. I never liked him. And when he starts talking about all these wars, I mean, he's right. He's right. Like, what are we doing over there? I mean, this is all the stuff Trump was saying during the campaign. So I would really like to see a lot of that end up coming through. But I could tell you this, guys, there's something brewing, and I can't talk about it yet. I haven't been received the okay to discuss it, but it's something that we'll probably have been expecting in regards to some of the decisions that are going to be made in the future regarding some of our relationships internationally. So this should be interesting. Oop, I dropped it. Oh well. So like I'd mess with things all the time. I don't know. It was like a little magnet. Dropped it. So Diane on Facebook says that she voted for him. I guess she's talking about Bush and ended up hating him. Well, there's a lot of people that ended up hating him, I think, whether they voted for him or not. And it is what it is, because here's the thing, and this is kind of the point, is that the swamp is both on the right and the left. The swamp is the swamp, okay? There is no distinction. I mean, yes, the Democrats as a party as a whole are useless at this point, except for just destroying the country even worse. Okay, that's basically what they want to do. They just want to institute policies which are going to push their interests forward, okay, and the people who pay them money and give them all this money push their interests forward while their pockets stay lined. They repopulate this country. That's all what they want to do. The part where Rand smacks down Lindsey Graham is the best. Yeah, I love. Again, you have problems on the right and the left. That is what the case is. So the only way that we're going to know who we should vote for, guys, is we have to be involved in a local, more grassrootsy kind of way. And the internet is a great way for us to be able to do that, because there's people I interact with that I would never have interacted with ever, I'm sure, because just of where I live geographically and where they live. So, we have the ability to really do something and spread, positivity and spread the information needed to get out there. Because you know what? Yeah. So if let's say you don't go to rallies all the time, okay, fine, whatever. What is it? I mean, I can sit here and make a video right now, and this is going to reach a decent amount of people. So whatever information is packed into this video, whatever topics are being discussed, whatever is being a part of it, that can be sent all over the place. I mean, it's unfortunate because on the Patriot Media Facebook page that we had, I mean, we had people from internationally watching us. I mean, it was great. And hopefully I'm sure we still do on YouTube, but on Facebook, we had people from Sweden and all types of different places. I'm a keyboard warrior, Apollo says. Well, you know what? That's what, but honestly, there's a lot of people who spend time in that, and that helps, get information around. That's really what we need to do, is be able to disseminate information through channels to get it out there, because right now there's a lot of fragmentation going on. Okay. You've got this group and that group, and anybody who knows about all this drama that's going on, you can see, and it all has to do with what are the motives? Why are people not looking at the reality of the situation, and instead they're going off some kind of feeling that they get? It's like you got to go based off of what's in front of you, the black and the white. You know what I'm saying? That's how it has to be. I mean, they don't, you know what I mean? If you're basing it off of how you feel and not off something black and white, then I'm not really sure that your decision-making process is the best, because there is a lot of things out there to show who are trying to actually really do something, and those who are trying to do something else. I'll just put it like that. Let me see if there's any comments here. Americans need to vote on policies, not party. Well, Linda, that's true. I agree with you. However, when you get to a certain point in the government, you don't really get a chance to vote on everything individually. And, you have to have people who you trust, who are going to represent your interests the best, that are actually going to, not sell you out, basically, because that's the biggest problem that we have right now is politicians selling their constituents out big time. Let me see. I'm trying to see what this says here. I'm just reading some of you guys' comments here because we can go back to the video for a little bit. Let's go back to this because this was weird. This is getting good, actually. So we'll listen a little bit more and then we'll come back. So here we go.
And any of the ones were involved at this point. The thing is, we said after 9/11 we're going to go after those who attacked us, those who aided the attackers, and those who abetted them or supported them. They're all dead. We killed them all. And that's good. We should declare victory and come home from Afghanistan. Because right now we're over there nation building. Why do we have trouble with nation building? I'll give you a story from a Navy SEAL I met a couple years ago. He'd been in 19 years.
That's what Obama and Clinton does best.
And he said, you know what? We can go anywhere. We can kill any of our enemies. We can do whatever you ask us to do. But he said the mistake is when the politicians tell us to plant the flag and create a country. We're just not very good at it. Most of our military don't want to be policemen. They don't want to create countries. They'd soon kill the enemy, come back home to their family. But we kill the enemy, and then we stay, and we stay, and we stay, and we build them schools, we build them roads. I mean, there are some schools that have been built 4 or 5 times and blown up 4 or 5 times by the Taliban. It's terrible that the Taliban doesn't want girls to go to school. It's terrible that the Taliban would do this. But don't the people who live there have some responsibility after we've given them $1 trillion
Yes.
to do something for themselves?
Yes.
And will people do something for themselves if you keep doing it for them?
No.
So really there has to come a time when we come home. We spend $50 billion a year in Afghanistan. Our mission's over and we should come home. It's $50 billion a year that could be spent on infrastructure if you wanted to do that, or in maybe not having $1 trillion debt next year or deficit next year. We're in a bunch of different places, though. When the soldiers were killed in Niger not too long ago, or Niger, a country in Africa, many people didn't even know where the country was, much less that we had 800 troops there. You say, well, it's only 800. It's not that many. Well, the problem is 800 sometimes becomes 8,000, and sometimes then becomes 80,000. Because we get in the middle of a civil war, and some of our guys get killed, we're like, well, gosh, we got to do more, not less. And nobody wants to come home after people have been killed. They want to go in and punish the enemy. But I don't know who the good people are in Niger, or who the bad people are, and what they're fighting about. And so I think sometimes it's very unclear who the good guys and bad guys are. We've been involved in the Syrian civil war for a long
look,
time.
that's a fact right there, guys, because ISIS are we funded them. I mean, we funded ISIS, so that's absolutely true, because the way that we've handled these things in the past is that we just basically throw money and weapons at one side to fight the other side. We don't actually get ourselves involved first, and then look at all the messes that we've created all around the world because of how we do this. This is something that we've operated this way for a long time, where we actually fund the moderates, and then the moderates turn out to be radicals. So that's what happens.
Hated a group of people that many up here called the moderate Syrian rebels. Well, it turns out the moderate Syrian rebels were jihadists often. They hated Israel. The only people they didn't hate about
well, yeah, they all hate Israel.
Us. We gave anti-tank weapons to one group, and the leader of the group, within a week of getting our anti-tank weapons, said, we want them to fight ISIS. They said, the hell with ISIS. We want to attack Assad. When we're done with Assad, we want to attack Israel and get the Golan Heights back. These are the people we're giving weapons to. We poured hundreds of tons of weapons in there with Qatar, a lot of our weapons and a lot of our dollars running through Qatar, running through United Arab Emirates, running through Saudi Arabia. Just pour it in there. But a lot of them wound up in the wrong hands. We kept supporting these.
Okay, why are we funding other people's military and giving them equipment when our own military needs better equipment? Why is the money going there? Why? We just went through a whole bunch of other stupid things, and there's more too. There's more stupid ones.
That didn't fight. We spent $250 million training 10 of them. We trained 10 fighters for $250 million. We sent them into battle, and they were captured in the first 30 minutes. But then guess what happened recently? And I will give President Trump some credit for this. They decided to ally with whoever was fighting the best over there, and it turned out the Kurds were. both the Syrian Kurds and the Kurds that live in Iraq, and they did fight. But now, the question is, now Turkey's unhappy with that, so we're going to throw the Kurds under the bus in favor of Turkey that has a leader that really has no use for us at this point either. It's very, very confusing who the enemy is and who our friends are over there. But it's also very, very expensive. I think we have to defend ourselves, and we may occasionally have to attack the enemy overseas. But the thing is if we go and stay for decade after decade, in Iraq, they said, we didn't stay long enough. How long's long enough? 100 years, 200 years, forever? They don't see us. We said they're going to.
I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, that he's talking about that, and this is something that I've always felt is this: when we go and we stay there, okay, for extended periods of time, because we try to force our way of life onto these other regions of the world and these other countries. Okay, that's what happens. We go in there and we take out whoever it was or whatever the case is, and then we try to set up a democracy over there. Now, it doesn't really work that way. You can't go and you can't go in and basically force what you want onto people and expect them to accept it. Okay, these people over there for thousands of years in a lot of these areas have lived in this completely different type of world than what we live in the West. Okay, so they're used to brutal things going on all the time. And here we go, we're coming like, here, let's why don't we just build you a Starbucks, a school, and we'll give you guys a televised cricket league, and now you guys are fine. So all your problems are fixed now. No, look at what happened to this country. What the founding fathers of this country had to go through to establish something because they wanted it. Okay, they wanted it. Nobody handed them the United States on a silver platter and said, here you go. Here's your country. Enjoy. That's not the way it works. People have to rise up in their respective areas to be able to make a change. Okay, we can't go in there. Now, again, there are certain instances where you need to step in when you're talking about mass genocide of people, something like that, to stop the damage. Okay, but when you're talking about how people live and how they choose to live, and then we go in there and we wipe them out, and then we feel that we should just build up their whole country, we're building up other countries directly and indirectly through all of the decisions that are made here. I mean, the trade deals that we had have rebuilt China. They've rebuilt China. So when you couple the trade deals along also with the ignorance of people making decisions of where this money should go, it just gets worse and worse. I just don't really understand what is going on.
Liberators, they kind of see us as occupiers. Afghanistan has hated every country that's ever come in there. They didn't like the Russians occupying them. They didn't like the British occupying them. They don't like us there. There was a movie with a depiction of this scene not too long ago, and they were in a village, and they just freed the village, and the general was telling them how you are free, or you're free, and the elders of the village gathered and said, will you leave now? Because they realized that wasn't the end, and that eventually the Americans would leave. When they left, the Taliban would come back. And we just have to rethink, are we going to be at war forever? Can we afford it? And maybe do we have to think about maybe whether or not we should do some nation building here at home, not always abroad?
How about that? That's a
good option. We have to think
about
the unintended consequences of what we do as well. And I'll give you an example of that. We just recently signed a deal to give Saudi Arabia over $350 billion worth of military equipment. Currently, Saudi Arabia is using that equipment to encircle and blockade a country next to them, Yemen. Yemen's a very poor country. They import about 80% of their food. They're one of the poorest countries on the planet, and currently 17 million people live on the edge of starvation. But people have convinced themselves that, well, there's some Shia that are supported by Iran, and we don't want Iran there, so we got to support the Sunnis. Does anybody remember who attacked us on 9/11? It wasn't the Shias, it was the Sunnis. Most of the radical jihadists are the ones that have been trying to get into our country. In fact, I don't know of any Shia terrorists that have been here, to tell you the truth. We've had plenty of Sunni terrorists. 16 out of the 19 hijackers were from Saudi Arabia. We just released documents last year, the missing pages from the Saudi Arabia investigation with 9/11 Commission, that shows that there's a possibility they were complicit in those things. They're not exactly a free country. They're a monarchy that is actually having power consume and concentrate in one person's hands more and more. So we have to decide, what wars do we need to be involved in? Our founders were very clear about this. Our founders didn't like war, by the way. Our founders had seen virtually perpetual war in Europe. Everybody was always fighting somebody, and went on even after the founding of our country. Cousins were fighting cousins, fathers fighting brothers, brothers fighting brothers. Everybody was related. All the royal families of Europe were related. They're always fighting with each other. Of course, they didn't do the fighting. They sent the common man to do the fighting. So when we got to our country, we said, we've got these oceans, enough of that, we want less war. So one of the things they included in the Constitution was this. They included in the Constitution a very specific provision that said when we go to war, we have to declare war, and it has to be passed by Congress. So there was a debate over whether that power should be in Congress or should be in the hands of the president. And Madison said this. He said that the executive, the president, is the branch most prone to war. Therefore, with studied care, we gave that power to the legislature. So war is supposed to be determined by us, and ultimately us as representatives of you. It doesn't happen that way, and it hadn't happened that way for a long time. Why are we at war in 7 different places? We don't vote on it. We haven't voted on anything really since the proclamation for the Iraq War, which I think was a mistake, but we at least voted on it back in 2002. We voted in 2001 to go into Afghanistan for those who attacked us. We haven't voted on anything since. They say, oh, the 2001 proclamation gives us the power to go anywhere, because these people could somehow tangentially, most of the people we're fighting now weren't even born and have nothing to do with 9/11 and nothing to do with Afghanistan, and yet we're in perpetual war and we haven't voted on it. So once again, it's the process that's broken, like the budget. So we have extraordinary...
Which is exactly what I'm saying, is that, and what he said, and I think this is what has to be talked about, is how they just don't work, they don't do anything. It's the way in which it goes down, the process of how they do everything.
Waste, and your money gets burned and put in a closet and thrown down a waste hole because we don't do the right process of following your money. And war is somewhat the same way. We get involved in war in too many places because we don't have a vigorous debate. When we go to war, I tell people that should be the most important decision we ever make, most important decision a legislator ever
people's
makes.
Lives. People's lives.
It should be a profound, moral, personal decision, as if your kids are going or as if you are going. And it should be a heartfelt debate, and everybody should speak out, and we should try to figure out whether it's right to go to war. And interestingly, when we've been attacked, we've been nearly unanimous. When we were attacked at Pearl Harbor, they voted, and I think one person opposed it in Congress, and everybody else voted for it. When we were attacked on 9/11, same thing. And I would have voted for that response. We should have responded. It was the right thing. But we voted. We did the right thing. But since then, we're now at war everywhere in countries that most of us haven't heard of, fighting on one side or the other, and we don't even know what we're fighting for, and it costs an extraordinary amount of money, but we're not voting on it. Maybe if we did the right thing, maybe if, like appropriations, we passed the appropriation bills, maybe if war, we voted on it, we wouldn't be in so many places. But they're all interconnected because they're interconnected to the shortness that we have in money. The last thing I'll get to is something called the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling...
All right, so we'll give it a second. We'll come back to that. So okay, right there, he's talking about all the wars. He's saying we need to get out of the countries, everything that we're saying. But part of it is we're having to clean up the mess. Okay, we're having to clean up part of the mess that's been there for all these years as well. And by going into these places and stuff that's happened has affected all of the situation. Basically, all the stuff that's going on now is a culmination of the decisions that were made before. So all of the decisions from the previous administration, all of the countries that they went to invade and overthrow, and all these things. All of this was. Trump was tweeting about the speech, agreeing with Paul. I think he either liked it or knows it hit a chord. Well, because he's actually speaking out, trying to work. You know, that's one thing about him, Rand Paul, that I've always heard is whenever something comes up, he's always like, well, let's do it this way. Let's do it that way. He's always against coupling bills together. Everything that I've heard from him, he does not like coupling things together. He likes to have them separated and do them as separate things. Like the same thing happened with the first tax thing, the way that it was constructed. His complaint then is that they should do two separate things and that they shouldn't do them together. So here, let's see what he has to say here about the debt. If you've seen this already, I apologize, but I'm not going to go through the entire thing. In fact, we'll probably, I don't know how much longer we'll do it for. We'll just hang out for a little while.
Is something that has been a limitation on how much we spend, and we have to vote on it, and it's an unpleasant vote. And so they try to either do it for a long period of time or try to stretch it beyond elections. So this bill, the 700-page bill that no one read, that will continue all the spending and will not reform your government and is irresponsible, the one we will pass later tonight, that 700-page bill also allows the debt ceiling to go up. Historically, we would let the debt ceiling, our borrowing limit, we would let it go up a dollar amount. We'd say, well, we've got to borrow money, and it looks like we're going to need $1 trillion. But you know the way they do it now? It's like everything else around here. We bend, break the rules, and then somehow there's a little bit of deviousness to it. The debt ceiling will go up in unspecified amount. So as much as you can borrow between now and November, go for it. So there is no limitation. The debt ceiling becomes not a limitation at all. They're still taking the vote, although many people don't even want to vote on it anymore. They just want it just to happen. They say, well, you voted for the spending. I personally think the more obstacles we have in place to spending money you don't have, the better we would be. But the debt ceiling will go up in an unspecified amount. There will be a credit card that will be issued for the United States that has no limits. And this is a problem. So everything about this stinks, to tell you the truth. Everything about this process, and the media doesn't even get it. The media does you such a disservice. They can't even understand what's going on sometimes. They're like, bipartisanship is broken out. Hallelujah. Republicans and Democrats are getting along, and in reality, they should be telling you, look for your wallet. Check your pants to make sure they haven't taken your wallet. Because when both parties are happy and both parties are getting together and doing stuff, guess what? They're usually looting the Treasury.
That's so true.
That's what this bill does. It's going to loot the Treasury. It spends money we don't have.
That's so true.
We will have $1 trillion deficit this year. $1 trillion. And what I would say to my Republican colleagues, you don't see them here, I'm not sure where they are, but what I would say to my Republican colleagues is, I know every one of you. I know every one of you. I've seen your speeches. I saw every one of you go after President Obama. Was that all just empty partisanship?
Here we go.
Do you not really believe it? Every one of them in their states, I promise you, every one of them went home and probably will go home next week and say how they're fiscally conservative and they're against the debt. And almost all of them are going to vote for this new debt. Almost all of them are going to vote for $1 trillion debt in 1 year. And every one of the Republicans, at least, was against President Obama's debt. At least the Democrats are honest. They're not too concerned about the debt. Well, they are sometimes. They're concerned about the debt when it comes to taxes, because they don't want people to keep more of their own money. They are afraid somehow of the amounts of that. But the thing is that we do have to watch the balance of money, how much comes in and goes out. And some have said, well, how can you be a deficit hawk if you voted for the tax cut? Well, one, because I think you own your labor. You own the fruits of your labor. You own all of it. You give up some of your labor to live in a civilized world. And so my question to you is that everything you make, everything you own, everything that comes from the sweat of your brow and the work of your hands is yours. And if you give up some, you're giving up your liberty. And you give up a little bit of your liberty, you give up a little bit of your wages to live in a civilized world, to have law and order, and have some government. So I'm okay with that. But I ask you, do you want to give up more or less? Do you want to give up 100% of your paycheck? Or do you want to give up 10% of your paycheck? We should always be about minimizing government. So taxes really are about how much of your liberty you get to keep.
That's exactly the whole thing with the tax cut. I mean, I was saying this, putting more money in your pocket. The Democrats were out there talking about how it doesn't actually, they find anything to talk negatively about it, but we all know that it actually puts more money back in people's pockets. So I'm not really sure what that whole issue was. Give me one second. I'm trying to put this in here, guys, for you. Okay, cool. So we'll go back now.
How much of the liberty to continue spending your own money? And the other side of the ledger is the spending. Are we going to have some government spending? Yes. The Constitution laid out very specific requirements for what was allowed to do. Article 1, Section 8 says what Congress can do, and they're very few and limited. And yet what happened over time is that we began doing a lot of things that aren't there. What they said in the Bill of Rights was pretty important, though, in the 9th and 10th Amendment. The 9th Amendment says that those rights not listed are still yours and not to be disparaged. So the Bill of Rights was not a complete listing of your rights. You have many other rights, such as the right to privacy, the right to property, that aren't exactly spelled out in the first 8 amendments. But then the 10th Amendment said something really important too. They said if the Constitution didn't explicitly give that power to the federal government, it's left to the states and the people respectively.
And this is where things get screwed up, okay? Because the Democrats constantly abuse, and we've also seen just in general the government abuse this, okay? The states' rights they're not like how they were intended to be, okay? We know that. So let's hear what else he says here.
So many of the things we do up here, and this is the other reason for our debt, there are checks and balances within the process. We're supposed to do appropriation bills and all that. That might or might not work. It can't be worse than what we're doing now. But the real check and balance is the Constitution. So the Constitution has these limits on how big government can get and what government can do. And if we obeyed the Constitution, you would have a balanced budget every year. If you had a balanced budget every year, would there still be things that government does? Sure. But we have to assess as a people, we have to decide, and really this is the ultimate decision the American people have to have. Are you going to cheer for the Republicans and Democrats holding hands and having $1 trillion deficit, or are you going to say to yourself, I'm suspicious that the Republicans and Democrats are clasping hands and giving us $1 trillion deficit?
Yeah, definitely suspicious, okay? There's no way that they will do the obstruction that they have been doing unless there's something in there that's shady, that is good for them. Okay, there's no way, because this is such a big deal. The spending, like they've shut down the government over all of this stuff. Okay, I mean, this is not. If they're agreeing on this, I agree with him. There should be a debate about it, and there should be a discussion, and that's exactly what I think should be done.
Are we so excited about
instead of empty chairs
that we don't care what the result of civility is? Or are we really sort of misguided in thinking because people aren't yelling at each other and that they've bridged their differences, but that the compromise means that we're all going to spend more money, we're going to ignore the Constitution, the waste is going to continue on, and nothing will be fixed? Are we so sold on civility that we're willing to give up on and just say, oh, well, at least we're getting along together. As long as we're getting along, that's all we want. I think we're smarter than that. And I think the American people are more perceptive. And I think in the end, the American people will see through this. I think they're going to see it in the future as the future unfolds, as the stock market continues to be jittery. I think they're going to see it as we move forward and the ramifications of having so much debt come home. This could be higher interest rates. And those affect not only you personally, but can also affect the massive government programs that we have, Social Security and Medicare.
So here's the thing, though. Like the big issue, we don't want $1 trillion in debt at all. But let's look at the destruction that's happened over Obama. I mean, he doubled the national debt, okay? Close to 20 trillion when he left office. He walked in with 10 and doubled it to 20. So we don't want the debt. We don't. And this is a horrible solution because we already have too much as it is. We shouldn't even be up to close to the 20. We shouldn't be there. I mean, that's way too much. Way too much.
It's one of the larger items. I think it's the third largest item that we spend right now. And so as interest payments grow, it crowds out other things. And so right now we've got, we're still paying government interest probably in the low 2% or a little bit more. Imagine what happens when it's 5%. Even if interest stays at 2%, because government is growing and we have a bigger and bigger debt, we're going to have an $800 billion interest payment. It'll be the number one item. It's going to crowd out everything else. So there are ramifications. There are people who say that when you're at 100% of your GDP, like your whole economy, when your whole economy equals your debt, that you're at this sort of precipice. You're at this point where you may reach a point of no return. There are ways we could fix this. Later this year, I'll offer a budget that freezes spending. And you say, well, how bad could that be? We're just going to give government the same amount they had last year. If you freeze all spending, everything that we spend money on, you balance the budget within about 5 or 6 years. And you'd get things back in balance if you did it. But if you talk to people up here, they would freak out. And I promise you, we'll probably get 10 or 15 votes for freezing spending to try to get it back in order. But this is what we have to ask as American people. Are you happy with your government? Are you happy with trillion-dollar deficits? Are you happy with people who just don't seem to care? They care somehow more about this clasping hands and everybody gets everything and you get to get home for the weekend. But I think the ramifications for our country are severe and significant. And what I would ask my colleagues, as well as those across the country, is basically, what do you want from government? Do you want some physical item? Is government here so someone can get you something and give you some physical item, a cell phone or a car? Is that what government's for? Or is government here to preserve your liberty? See, most of us...
Now, if you can't answer that question and your answer is not liberty, then there is something wrong with you. You have been brainwashed by some form of media, education, or something to think that you are entitled to objects by the government. Okay, that is not what they're there for. It's not what they're there for.
I would say some of us believe that your rights are from God, that they pre-exist government, and that really government's job is not to get you stuff. Government's job is not to get somebody else's stuff for you. Government's job is to preserve your liberty, to preserve your natural God-given rights. And in doing that, you may acquire through your liberty and through your hard work, you may acquire stuff, and the government helps to prevent your neighbor from stealing it, but your government shouldn't be the one stealing it from your neighbor and giving it to you. And besides, we look at the ramifications of a society where we do think that we're going to take from one and give to the other, and we're going to do it through this government transfer program. When we look at that, we ask, is that good for the person? There's a good friend of mine who talks a lot about self-esteem, and I like the way he puts it. He says that self-esteem cannot be given to you. People say, well, you know, we need to...
In other words, what he's saying is all these people, we're not giving you stuff for free. You need to get out and work and try to make something of yourself, right? I mean, the government is not here to give you entitlements. The government is here to be a government. And the problem that we have is the government is so large. The government is so large and so bureaucratic in every single thing that it does that there's tons of money blown, wasted, spent on stupid things. And that's basically what he was been saying. So, you know, again, I'm not going to play the entire thing for you guys, but you can find it. It's on YouTube. It's in a bunch of different places. And there's that. I was thinking of maybe doing call-ins, but we're not going to do that. Right now, what I need is everyone on Facebook who's watching this, please like the page. Our last page was deleted. Facebook wiped it out completely, so we're starting from scratch again. That's why we only have like 100 and whatever likes. We had over 47,000 followers before. So if you want to give us the follow and a like. And also, guys, we have our other social media scrolling down here. We have our Periscope, our YouTube, and our Gab channel. And real quick, before we head out on this, let me show you what we got here. So this is Gab. I showed it before. This is what Gab looks like over here. And we also have our Instagram page as well. It's for you guys. You can come and follow us over here on Instagram. And if you really like what we're doing and you like what we're about, what you're seeing over here at Patriot Media, and if you look at our older videos on our YouTube channel, you can go here, patreon.com/Patriot Media. You can go ahead and help us out. Diane says, what does Diane say here? Let's take a look. She says, oh, Joe, you got to play the part where they study the effects of cocaine on quail. Censorship. Yeah, they deleted the page, guys. So they deleted the page, and so we're starting over. And that is what it is. Maybe we'll do a few more minutes of this for you guys. We'll play just a few more. I mean, we could play the rest of it. It's just like another... I don't know. You guys got to tell me what you want to do. If you want me to play the rest of it, the remaining, 18 minutes or something like that, I guess I could do that. I'll just have to come back for it. But yeah, well, you know what? Screw it. Let's play it for now.
Everybody get a trophy. Everybody gets first place, and we need to whether Johnny.
Oh yeah, the participation
read,
crap.
Pat Johnny on the back and make sure Johnny feels good about whether he can read or not read. And
let me tell you something about that too. There's this new mentality. This is just a quick commentary on this. There's this new thought process going around that, you have to coddle everybody, and you have to, every little feeling that they feel, you have to validate it for them. And, yeah, you have to validate every little feeling and coddle everybody. This is something that's been slowly progressing. First it's the participation medals, it's all this kind of stuff, and that's what he's talking about here. It's absolutely ridiculous. So here, well, let's go ahead.
In reality, the only self-esteem you get is from achievement. And some people say, oh, that's easy to say if you've achieved or done something, but really you can have achievement at anything. It's a little bit akin to some of this talk we've had about, merit immigration. There's merit to hard work, picking tomatoes. There's merit to being a doctor, a lawyer, a professor. There's merit to so many jobs. And that's also where your self-esteem comes from. And one of the things we've done in our country is we are destroying the self-esteem and motivation of the country. What goes along with that? When we've destroyed your self-esteem and you no longer leave your house, weight problems, drug problems, are all the things.
Yeah, we got them all here in the United States.
So you're simplifying addiction. It
Everywhere.
Doesn't all come from big government. Maybe not. But I
Here
think
we
there's
go.
a correlation. There's a correlation to not working and the disease that comes from non-work. You say, oh, you're heartless. You're just saying that everybody should work and there are not jobs. There virtually are full employment now. We have less than 4% unemployment. And yet, the way we measure it, we still have communities that have 30% non-workers because they're no longer counted in this. And this is where a lot of the problem exists in our society. A lot of the drug problem is coming from non-workers. And so I think we have to reflect on what we want from government. Do you want something material from government? Do you want some government to give you something that your neighbor has that you don't have? Or do you want government to protect your God-given liberty? And I think if we realize that the abstraction of liberty is something amazing and incredible, and that's what our government is about, maybe we would bicker less. And we would become more unified as a people, knowing that what you're trying to get is not something, they talk about whether coveting something is a bad thing. When you covet or you really want something of somebody else's. Some of it's because it's somebody else's, but some of it's wrong about it, but some of it's because it's a material thing you want. Instead of sort of the freedom to search and seek out through work and through life and through art and through literature, your own bit of self-esteem. And I think if we knew what government was about and we recognized the true function of government, we wouldn't be in this state.
Well, and he's so right with that, because that is the problem, is that all of these people that are coming through the educational system, all of the people on the left, all of the Democrats that are, really, I don't even know what the difference is between the Socialist Party and the Democratic Party at this point. They all feel like they could just give away everything and, at everyone else's expense. So, it's ridiculous.
That I'm very, very saddened by where we are. I'm saddened mostly by the debate on my side. I have disagreements with the other side, but I know where they are as far as these are concerned. I'm saddened on my side that many people who give lip service to believing and saying when they're at home they are fiscal conservatives will vote for a bill that adds $1 trillion to the debt.
Yeah, absolutely hypocrites.
And I think really if we were honest with ourselves, we would say no. And people say, well, the government was shut down. I don't want the government to shut down. I think it's a dumb idea. In fact, I proposed legislation called the Government Shutdown Protection Act. What my legislation would do is this. You have a year to do your appropriation bills. There's 12 different units of government, and it's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. And we say, well, how do we make these people do their job if they won't do their job? So what we say is over that 12-month period, we say, well, if you don't do your job, government will continue spending, but government will continue spending 1% less. So government would go on spending 99% of what they spent the last year, but every 90 days would take 1% more from government until the people in government decide to do their job. I see some members of the House, they did their job last year. They passed all 12 appropriation bills. And yet the Senate, I think we finally in the end passed one 4 or 5 months into the fiscal year. So I think if you looked at it that way and you said,
Wife
how
got
can
home,
we do,
guys. Wife's
how can
home.
we convince Congress to do its job? That's part of the answer, is passing the individual appropriation bills, but also evaluating them for waste and being concerned with waste. But probably equally important is understanding that the function of government, the powers of government are few, defined, and limited. And that was a big thing that Madison talked about. And when you read the Federalist Papers, he's talking about how there are very specific functions of government. Government wasn't supposed to do everything. There's nothing in the Constitution about education. You say, oh my God, he would get the federal government out of the education system. Absolutely. Get them completely out. The Constitution said nothing about them being in, and we don't have the money for it, and the state governments are better at it. Doesn't say the state government can't be involved, but the federal government shouldn't be involved at all in education. We took on a responsibility that wasn't in the Constitution. We don't pay for it. And as a consequence, our government gets bigger and bigger. We take on new functions of government that really were never spelled out in the Constitution. Department of Commerce, it could be gone. You'd never know it probably. But it could be gone. You save $35 billion in it. Most of its functions are not in the Constitution. But see, we have to have some of that debate over what is the proper role, what is the constitutional role, and how would we have that debate if we're not allowed to amend the bill?
That's exactly what has to be done.
If we're given a 700-page bill the night before,
nobody
reads it, and they say, well, it's done. It's a binary choice, their favorite word, binary choice. Take it or leave it. Well, I'm leaving it. I'll have nothing to do with adding a $1 trillion. I could not go home and look my wife in the face. I could not go home and look my friends in the face. I could not go home and look for anybody that voted for me and look them in the face and say, oh yeah, you know, old President Obama, he was terrible. $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye could see. Oh, but the Republican deficits, they're not quite as bad because they're just $1 trillion.
Yeah.
See, that's what we're doing here. The Republican side is telling America $1 trillion deficits are bad when they're Democrats, but they're okay when they're Republicans.
And that, guys, is one of the major problems. Like I said, it's the swamp. It's the swamp creatures. It's all the swamp creatures that have been there. It's all the people that have just been in there that just want their seats. They just want the money to keep coming. That's what these people are. And I've said it many times that the people on the right that act like they're on the right, but they're not really on the right, are the ones that are actually causing the most damage, more than on the left.
You deficits are, you know, they're bad.
Because at least we know what the left's about.
They're not so bad when we do it. This is the height of hypocrisy. And this is sort of maybe the uncomfortableness that this debate engenders. And having this uncomfortableness is maybe why we don't want to have amendments. It's sort of backfiring because I'm going to talk about this for quite a while. And we're going to vote at 3 in the morning because they wouldn't let me have a vote during the day. And I probably won't get a vote. But I think it's sort of misguided. We should have had 20 votes. There are votes the Democrats wanted that I probably disagree with and probably would have voted no on. But I would have voted to let them have amendments. This is a big deal. This is our spending. You know, this is what the Congress is supposed to do, is assess our spending and how much we do. And yet we're not going to have amendments to it. It's pre-decided by some secret cabal of leadership from both sides who have now clasped hands to say, we have won, the country has won, we now have a $1 trillion deficit.
It's called the swamp.
The American people are losing by this.
Swamp's got to go.
And so I think we have to figure out a better way. We have to figure out a way where we do our job, which is each of the individual appropriation bills. We look and we scrutinize waste. I showed you some of the William Proxmire Golden Fleece Awards from 1968. And the same agency that's been wasting that money is still here. We haven't limited their budget. Their budget's probably tenfold bigger than it was in 1968, and we're still doing the crazy stuff. Actually, the last one, let's do the quail one. I can't resist. So here's a good one from the same group of people that brought you Neil Armstrong and $700,000 to study, what did he say, one small step for man or one small step for a man. These people, they one up even Neil Armstrong. They decided that they wanted to know, are Japanese quail more sexually promiscuous on cocaine? Inquiring minds want to know. And the thing is I think we could probably poll the audience. I wish there was a button at home we could ask people to just sort of dial in and push a button. Do you think Japanese quail are more sexually promiscuous on cocaine? We spent money. We spent $356,000.
That is absurd.
See, this is the kind of craziness. But why do we do this every year? Why doesn't it get any better? We don't look at it. So if you have a 700-page bill...
It doesn't get any better because we don't have anybody in office that, except apparently for Rand Paul, who knows how to use their head and realize what the hell's going on. We got to get more people in office that are actually going to do their job. That's what we have to do.
Nobody looks at it. How are you ever going to find this? Even in an appropriation bill, if we did an appropriation bill that included this, it would still be 500 pages long, and you'd have to hunt long and hard to find this. Why don't we have conditions on how you spend your money? Because we don't look at it. Nobody reads any of these bills. We don't do individual bills. People come to my office and they say, well, I'm for legal aid, and I think people should be able to have a lawyer and poor people should get help. And I was like, and I listen to them and I say, well, I've never voted on that. I probably will never vote on that. I won't even vote on the Department of Government that oversees legal aid. because I'm given a 700-page bill that has all of the government spending. So what's ironic about this is we have dozens and dozens of people who come to our office every day saying, we like this part of government. And I say, well, I never get to vote on it. So I don't know if I can help you or hurt you because I never get to vote on that part of government. They make me vote on all of the government. So it's either all or none. The binary
That's exactly
choice
what I
is-
was saying. You know, his pattern, when you've seen him talk about things before, he likes to separate the stuff, and I don't blame him. And this is a problem. When you lump everything together, and that's what you have to vote on, and he's actually trying to be meticulous and go through the details and do the right thing, and he's not able to do that, and no one else who's voted in cares to do that, we've got a problem, guys.
Shut
We've got a
it
problem.
down,
Big problem.
or keep it open but don't reform it. I think it's a terrible choice. I did a hearing this week and I called it the terrible, rotten, no good way to run your government. And that's what I believe. It's a terrible, rotten, no good way to run your government, and we just shouldn't do it. And I'll tell you another, this is a secret, so don't tell anyone. But when I talk to people, I've talked to probably 50 senators in the last 3 weeks. And you know what most of them say? Well, we kind of agree with you. It's a really crummy way. This is the last time I'm voting for it. And I say, well, didn't you tell me that last year? Didn't I hear that the year before? That was your last CR you're ever voting for. You're never going to vote for another one. You know what would happen? Let's say that this speech was so persuasive that all my colleagues came in here and got a conscience, and they all voted down this spending and said, hooey with all of you, we're going to not spend all that money. The government would shut down over the weekend. We'd come back on Monday and do our job. You know, and then we'd start looking at the spending individually. We'd start looking at each individual items, and we'd say, these are things we shouldn't spend it on. These are things we should. We'd begin that process. The other thing is, if you pass one appropriation bill, then you don't have to worry about that part. So once you pass the defense appropriation bill, that's more than 1/12 of government. It's probably about a third of the government. You pass that, then you don't have to worry about that shutting down. So each time you pass an appropriation bill, you move on to another. But
Right, and that's the key, guys, is how everything has to be straightened out, because this government shutdown crap is because they lump everything into one thing. I really don't understand why they do it this way, and that's what he's pointing out here. He's pointing out that they shouldn't do it this way. If you guys hear a little bit of noise in the background, don't mind. It's just there's some stuff cleaning up and whatever going on. But that's what we're dealing with here. You know,
that.
I mean,
and I think the thing that's disappointing is probably everybody in here, Republican and Democrat, will tell you, oh, this is a terrible way to run your government. And yet we're doing it. And we did it a week ago, and we did it 3 weeks ago, and we did it a month ago. This is the fourth time we've done it this year. Since I've been here, we have never passed all the appropriation bills. We've never had extended debate in committees. I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking, what if the first day you got sworn in, the leadership sat in the chair and all 100 people were required to be here or requested strongly to be here, and we had a frank discussion, and we said to both sides, this is the year. I'm not doing any continuing resolutions, and guess what? It'll just shut down if we don't. But we're going to do our job, and in the first 3 months of the fiscal year, we're going to have hearings. And the main job of the hearings will be to both authorize and appropriate the money. 3 months for each committee. That'd be a pretty long time, actually. And then maybe you spend a whole week or 2 weeks in the committee with amendments, with specific things like, we've decided this year not to study what cocaine does for Japanese quail. So this would be the year we finally stop doing that.
that's so ridiculous.
And you'd have that debate, and you'd have 3 months on committees, and then you'd have 9 months left to do the spending bills. And then you'd say, if you were gathered and sitting in the chair, you'd say to everyone, this is the way we're going to do it. And then each appropriation bill, we're going to take 3 weeks on the floor to do them. 3 weeks. We're not going to putter around, obfuscate, and not have any amendments.
The graphic with the
until-
quail's face
this
and
is
the
what we're doing.
cocaine
We're
is
getting-
priceless.
You know, and the one reason we're going to send this over to the House at
I feel like that
midnight
should
is
be a
we're
meme.
too tired to vote no. So
Turn
we're
it
going to
into
send
a
it
meme,
over
everybody.
late tonight or 3 in the morning, maybe when it's going to be sent over. But it's purposefully done. We don't do amendments. We don't do anything in a timely fashion. We wait around to the very end. In the very end, we're trying to wear people out so there isn't sufficient energy to really scrutinize your government and its spending. We've had all week. We could have done this. But let's say you did committee hearings for 3 months, and then for 9 months, the rest of the fiscal year, you did your appropriation bills, and you spent 2 or 3 weeks on the floor, and you let people bring amendments. My first amendment would be bringing that the National Science Foundation is no longer able to do most of the stuff they do. And the only way you do this is you'd have to give them less money. Maybe half as much. I don't know.
They should take it out.
25% of what they get. I mean, a lot less, because
They're
they're
doing
spending a lot of it
stupidness.
on
Look at this.
things they shouldn't be doing. But this goes throughout government. We have the
Yep.
same debate all the time. We had this debate with the post office. They were losing $1 billion a quarter. That's quite a bit of money. And then they came before our committee and they said, well, we need to pay them sufficiently. You can't have good quality people unless you pay them. So they wanted to pay the top guy like $1 million, $1.5 million. And I said, well, to keep talent, to keep quality, how much talent does it take to lose $1 billion a quarter? It's like, I'll do it for less than that, but I can lose $500 million, for $500,000 a year. I mean, it's the ridiculous notion of government. And sometimes I wonder, I think, are the people in government, is government inherently stupid or populated by people who are inherently stupid? And I don't think so. I think there are well-meaning people in government.
No, they're voted in.
So they're not inherently stupid, but they don't get any of the right and
people
proper
that vote
incentive.
for them are stupid.
And so think about it in your life. If I were to ask you for $10,000 each, and I say, I've got this business proposition, will you give me $10,000? Were you going to think long and hard about what you had to do to get the $10,000? And if you give it to me, you're probably going to have a little pang inside, hoping you get it back and hoping I pay dividends to you and you get your money back. But it's really a heartfelt decision. It doesn't make it always the right decision, but it's a heartfelt decision, and you really, really struggle with every fiber of your being to make sure you made the right choice, even though it's not always going to be right. In government, imagine your city council person, $10,000. It's not their money. And then imagine that you go to state legislature and it's not $10,000, it's $2 million. Then imagine you get up here and it's now $2 billion or maybe $200 billion. It's not their money. And so when you look at government, you say, why is government so bad? Milton Friedman hit the nail on the head. Milton Friedman said, nobody spends somebody else's money as wisely as their own. That's the truth of it. And that's the way government is. So government will never be efficient because of the very nature of government. It's not an argument for no government, but it's an argument for minimizing how big government is. Government should never be involved in something that somebody else is already doing or that the private sector can do, because government will never be as efficient because nobody spends somebody else's money as wisely as their own. Until we recognize that, which actually goes hand in hand with what the founders thought. The founders thought that people ought to be left free to do most of the things themselves, and so they very significantly limited what the federal government was supposed to do. So as we move forward in this debate, and as we look at what can be done to bring back the greatness of this country, I think we do have to be worried about the debt we're accumulating. And my hope is that both sides of the aisle will look long and hard and say, this isn't the way we should run our government. And not just say this and say next time, but maybe say this time. Because I promise you, both sides of the aisle have told me this week. It's a terrible way to run government. Oh, you're exactly right. Continuing resolutions, putting all the spending in one bill and not reading it and having no analysis and not getting rid of the waste is a terrible way to run a government. But almost everybody who told me that this week is going to vote for it. So the only way this ever gets fixed is you've got to call these people and convince them that they need to do their job, which is do the individual appropriation bills.
Do your jobs.
They need to pay attention to the Constitution, or frankly, you need new people. And so that's what the American people have decided. You need new people, or are you happy with them borrowing $1 trillion? I think it's completely and utterly irresponsible, and I think it's something that no American family would do. I don't care whether you're a Democrat.
I mean, there it is, guys. There he says it, right? Get them to do their job or new people. Those are our options. Those are our options. This is where we're at. Okay, they're recklessly spending our money. They've been doing it for a long time. We now got Trump as president. Now it's time to support him by getting others in office and by really making it clear to people. And when I mean people, I mean people who don't know about this stuff, okay? They don't know who to vote for. And a lot of people may not even vote when it comes to this 2018 election. Everybody knows presidential elections, but the other elections, they don't get the same kind of turnout. And we need to have the turnout. We need to have the voters. We need to have people who are quote unquote minorities. We need them speaking out more and speaking out about the topics that matter to them and why they support our president and why they support these type of policies. We need more of that. More people have to come out and start to talk, because that is going to undermine all of the narratives that they've been trying to push forever, as far as all this race baiting and pitting this one up against that one. That's what they like to do. That's how they come in, they swoop in, they take all the control like they have, like what's been pointed out. and it has to stop. And how's it going to stop? By just getting it out there and supporting the people who are actually going to make a difference, whoever those people are that you feel who they are. I'm not going to sit here and tell you should vote for this one or that one. I think that if you have a brain, in your head and you evaluate the situations based on the actual policies and what the person is talking about and what that person is about, how are they as a person? How do they live, right? How does this person live? What are their qualities like? What do their family think of them? All these things are important whenever you look at somebody in any type of leadership position. You don't want just some rogue person going out there. So we need new people, and we need to make sure that the people who are going through the effort and who are legitimate possible candidates should be supported, and we should do everything we can to do it. William says you seem to be breaking up a lot. Maybe that's just on Periscope. I'm not really sure what the issue is, but anyway, guys, that's about it. So I'm going to go ahead and end it here. But thank you guys. If you're tuning in and you don't follow or you don't like the page, if this is on Facebook, our Facebook page was deleted. Make sure you hit that like. Give us that follow, turn on those live notifications, and also the subscribe on YouTube and also the live notifications. And with that, guys,